Yeah.
No, go ahead.
How are you?
Well,
I'm good. I'm actually just got my house beautiful. You know, I mean, by that I mean upstairs, you know, and I'll never see it again.
Good morning, everyone. Glad to have you here for our board meeting this morning. And what I'd like to do is have the roll call.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Chairman McCacken.
Here.
Dr. Thomas.
She has to be excused.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Manager. Mr. Broker.
Here.
Mr. Dawson.
Mr. Dawson had an emergency at his office and he asked that he be excused.
Thank you, Mr. Broker. Mr. Doran.
Here.
Mr. French.
Here.
Mr. Holmes.
Here.
Mr. Mavidoff.
Here.
Ms. Stone. Present. Thank you.
Did you say Dwayne was coming?
Wayne is not coming. He had an emergency in his office and wanted to be excused.
Oh, okay. All right, we have two people not here right now. As we know that Priscilla Thomas has been very ill. And so I'd like a motion on the floor to excuse her.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor and a second to excuse Dr. Priscilla Thomas. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And now we need a motion
To excuse Mr. Dawson.
to excuse Mr. Wayne Dawson.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor to excuse him. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, the approval of the minutes of February the 16th. Everybody was distributed those. Are there any corrections or additions to those minutes?
Make a motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item 3, action items. The RFP for the bus advertising.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Staff requests the board approve a request for proposal to provide transit advertising on its fleet of buses and other vehicles and services as part of the CAT marketing program. FTA requires that all revenue and service contracts be rebid every 3 to 5 years, and a procurement for bus advertising services is due under this requirement.
Okay. And this, of course, was in the book that you received and all, right? You have any?
I just had one question and one thing I wanted to clarify. I do know that I talked with Dr. Reese, and I know that Curtis, you and I have talked about this as well. To make sure that we have some provision for nonprofits to do advertising on the inside of the buses, and assuming that they were going to be responsible for the printing and all that sort of thing. I want to make sure that any contract we have with the vendor will allow for that. Is that contemplated in what you're going to issue, or does that come to the contracting phase?
Well, the RFP, we certainly put in the RFP, yeah.
Okay.
That's going to be placed in the RFP that goes out to.
The RFP's not created yet, or is it?
The scope has been developed. If it's not included, we can surely make that revision and have that as part of the RFP scope.
But that really doesn't affect the contract that's going out. In other words, this is just something added on, correct? I mean, or are you making this a requirement?
Well, I mean, it will. Basically, what I don't want us to do is to issue an RFP that contemplates a contract that provides that nothing will be put on the bus.
That's what I'm saying.
With the exception, including these placards that nonprofits may wish to put on the inside of the bus.
So would this need to be included in the RFP? I mean, or would this be understood? Because what I don't want is someone to submit a proposal and for us to accept it, and then for them to say, but we don't want that.
That's exactly why I'm bringing it up now.
We would have to put a provision in there.
That's what I'm saying.
And
do
it might
we-
already be in the drafted scope, we'll just have to check the details.
And would this limit, I mean, because there are a lot of non-for-profits out there, I mean, I don't want 100 of them on the inside of the buses.
Yeah, I think this has been allowed in the past. I'm just not sure there's been any real policy with respect to it. So what this may necessitate is a development of a policy that limits the kind of
There is a policy already.
announcement that.
There is a
Yeah,
policy.
that limits the type of advertising of that type inside the bus or on the bus.
So, but does it limit the number
No,
of vendors?
no, it doesn't limit number.
I mean, I don't know whether that's something before we just throw this out there that we need to think about or put some parameters in there. I mean, I don't know.
What would you suggest, a maximum percentage of space
Right.
available?
Right, because a lot of times interior advertising on buses is just a place for graffiti. And people draw on it, people put mustaches on people's faces, that kind of thing. And I just don't want it to become an eyesore. Well, I mean, you joke, but I've seen it.
Yeah,
And-
I have too.
And so I don't want our buses to be littered with propaganda that gives people the opportunity, if they don't believe in that non-for-profit, that they draw all over it.
Yeah, I mean, my thinking is that there's a lot of space that is unused where placards typically go. And while I do know that I have seen some graffiti, it's really fairly limited.
Bill, you brought this to the table probably a couple of years ago. I don't know if you remember. This been discussed, and from what I'm hearing, it should have been in there that we was doing that all the while. Now it screams that we're not revisiting this again, because I'm pretty sure we discussed this in depth the same way we do it now.
I think we did discuss it.
You the one put it on the table, and we the one discussed it.
Yeah, but I'm not sure, this is a juncture at which we surely need, to make sure it's
But
discussed.
what I'm asking is why wasn't it in this one when it was going out? Because we talked about it before.
Well, it may or may not be. I mean, I don't think the RFP's been issued yet, so.
Right.
No, the RFP, why don't we limit the space to, like you say, maybe be one spot on the inside of the bus for the charitable organization, so that we wouldn't have numbers of it in there.
I don't think there's gonna be an overwhelming push, and there really hasn't been to date for nonprofits to put things up there. But I think that, that what we may wanna make some provision in that, that there is a policy, that the Transit Authority has regarding the placement of placards by nonprofits.
Right.
And this contract shall not in any way be prohibitive of that policy being carried out or something along those lines. I don't think we have to, determine how many we're gonna allow and that sort of thing at this juncture.
Well, why don't we do this for you, Curtis? Let's, because we need to do this RFP now, and put that there, but come out with what Bill just said, and then we can discuss it again, but just put something in there on that about the space on the inside of the bus for charity, just now, that has to be approved by the board.
Or at least consistent with the policy approved by the board.
Yeah. Okay?
Maybe look at what some other areas do to promote it, but not allow for proliferation all inside of the bus.
Would you wanna, if you're talking about that many nonprofits, would you wanna create a rotation policy or something that's required that
Yeah.
turnover on it?
That's what I'm saying, to look at other areas and see how they manage it.
But all that to be detailed in the policy rather than the RFP.
Right.
Right.
And just give Ty the proper way of putting it out, just, you know, and we go from there. Okay, need a you made the motion, Bill.
I'm not really sure we need a motion. I'll be happy to make one, but I do think that Curtis has an idea of what we want to make sure is contemplated in the RFP.
Okay.
But-
Need a motion on the floor to approve the RFP for bus advertising.
But we're not approving an RFP yet, are we?
It's for the issue.
It's the issue.
Okay,
Approval
to
and-
issue an RFP,
Right.
not
Issue.
any RFP in particular. I want to be very clear here.
Okay, we need a motion on the floor.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, I'll second.
We need a second.
You'll second my motion?
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
You'll make my motion, I mean.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Item 2, it's on-site training and support services proposal. Curtis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Request board approval to purchase ITS on-site training software and system operation hardware maintenance services for the inter-system that we implemented last fall. This will allow us to fully utilize the ITS system and maximize our benefits with this new technology.
Okay.
I'll make a motion for approval.
I'll second that.
We have a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item 3, procurement policy and procedures manual revision.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. CAT's current procurement policy manual was approved and adopted by the board in April of 2011, revised in November of 12, April of 13, and July of 14. Staff has reviewed this document and made some changes and feel necessary to enhance internal controls and compliance with federal regulations. Request board approval.
I just have a
Go
couple of
ahead.
questions, and I'll be happy to make the motion for approval, but it was very difficult to get through all of this. And one of the changes, one of the biggest changes was, to me, was this policy of change orders. Page, it's the, right, it's first, right. So this, if I'm correct, and I want to be very correct about this.
Okay.
This is the area that, was, if I will state, was being not followed by the previous director. Is this where we got into some problems?
That was before Mr. Culver's time here, but you mean with the,
With the change orders? In
the
other
change
words,
orders with the
without-
charrette for the,
No, I'm really referring to
oh, I see.
when change orders, we were asked for change orders to be approved at the staff level at one point. And I believe that's what got us into some trouble with our former executive director.
The last sentence in the part that was deleted, when the board approves a contract at a base price plus contingency, the executive director can approve change orders and or amendments up to that contingency.
Mhm.
That was the revision
Mhm.
that allowed staff to approve the change orders without board approval. We're deleting that entire section
That's-
and adding a statement that requires the board to approve any and all change orders.
So this is in effect going back to the
To where
amendment
we were.
before we had a change.
Yes, sir.
That led to the problems we had.
This was before
Yeah.
the request from the former executive director to make the change orders at his discretion.
Yes.
Okay,
So we're
that-
taking that out
Right.
and putting a statement in that requires all change orders to be reviewed and approved by the board.
And there's no particular limit?
No.
Okay, I think, y'all, this is very important because I think it got this organization, no one in this room, into some problems previously. And I wanted to make certain that that was the way I understood it.
That's the only change to the previously
Entire-
approved policy. And we made the change to make sure that any change order is presented to the board and they have the opportunity to review and approve.
No matter how minor.
Yes, there's no limit on the amount. Any change order will come to the board.
And I think that that is for the protection of this board in light of what happened previously. And I'm glad to see it. Thank you.
Pete, Pete, should I just say one thing? And just to follow up on what Terry said that this is you gave us the whole, policies and
I
procedures
did give you the
manual,
whole
but this is the only
policy.
change
Only
in it.
change,
So
yes.
for all of you who read the whole thing,
I appreciate
all you had
that.
to read was this page.
Bill, I know that, but I just thought it would be informative to read the whole thing.
I'm with you. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, right.
believe me, I had better things to do
I'm sure you did.
than to read, all, 60, 70 pages here, but, I felt like it was important, but
I hear you.
you're right. This is, and I wanted to make sure that I understood this completely because I think that it hurt this organization the way it was originally done.
You're right.
So, my motion still stands for approval.
And I'll second your motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Next item, the IFB for ferry boat dock rehabilitation project.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Staff requests board approval to issue an IFB invitation to bid for ferry passenger dock repair and rehabilitation. Chatham Area Transit will seek bids from qualified vendors with experience in maritime construction and heavy civil rehab work in order to procure needed repair and rehabilitation services for the Trade Center dock as part of our Savannah River ferry system. And grant funding through Federal Highways Administration is available to cover 80% of the cost, and the remaining 20% local match be covered by the Trade Center.
So it's not costing this board anything whatsoever, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
I mean, I'm happy about that. I'm interested as to why.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Item 5, signature authority for the Transit Award Management System. Curtis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The FTA, as we discussed last month, has migrated their grants management system to a new software called TRAMS instead of TEAM. With this migration, we've been asked to complete a designation of signature authority in order to document the authority of grantee officials to execute various functions necessary to administer federal grant awards.
And I think that's very important because it will help this board in somewhat of control. Is that right?
Well, basically, right now, in order to get on the system and certify, it needs to be, I need to be able to do it. Because it used to be, previous safety director, his name is still on it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, I understand.
Do you need a motion?
All right.
I'll make the motion for approval.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Item 6, intergovernmental agreement for SPLOST 6 reimbursement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Request board to approve an intergovernmental agreement with Chatham County for reimbursement of SPLOST eligible expenses in accordance with the referendum passed in November of 2013.
How much, do we know approximately,
What are
and
we
I tried
looking
to read through this, do we know approximately how much this means for Chatham Area Transit?
The total allocated to Chatham Area Transit over the SPLOST term, which is a multi-year term, is $9 million.
Okay.
They paid us $1 million on some prior year capital expenditures, which reduced our pot to $8 million.
Mhm.
And we expect to spend that on the approved capital projects as we move forward with either the SERTA or federal funding. So
So
$8 million.
Around $8 million, so have we earmarked what those capital improvements will be? Will they be buses, or you don't know that?
The buses, paratransit vehicles, passenger amenities, it's all earmarked.
And just for future reference, did you feel, because I guess James will have to, this will come before us again,
Go ahead.
a SPOS vote, did you feel like the allocation was appropriate?
It's actually, we usually get 1.8 to 1.9 in a multi-year SPOS. In this particular SPOS 6, they increased our allocation to $9 million.
Well, we had a lot to do with that,
Yeah.
and so did Priscilla, but I'm just curious to know if you think that that's a fair distribution going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, I've been here long enough to know if there's a better distribution or if it's more fair or not.
I mean, because it's always hard to sit down and divvy up how you think SPOS funds ought to be allocated.
James?
You don't look at, increasing this at any time
Increasing the SPOS.
for requests, yes.
Well, I mean, we can certainly use it, absolutely. It's never enough money.
Well, I mean, I guess.
So
I mean,
we
you can
only have
request it,
so
but it
much
still
money,
has
yes.
to
I
come
mean,
through the board.
we would certainly like to have more. The more we have, the more buses we can buy, and, you know, benches for the stops at donut benches, things like that. I mean, there's.
But what I'm thinking is going forward, if you all could come up with a formula of what you think a fair distribution would be for Chatham Area Transit.
Sure.
So that when we go through another SPOS vote, and if it's approved, and the distribution is discussed, then we certainly have a format or a formula or something to make our case.
We can do that.
You remember the
Yeah.
minivan that we discussed some time ago, about 3-4 months ago?
Yeah.
Those minivans would be a good access to look at the cost and include that into it. Instead of getting the big buses,
Mhm.
the minivans.
DMV ones?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
When is this coming up for approval? You have a date on it?
It will be 4 years from now for the next SPOS.
Yeah.
Every year, CAT prepares a CIP submission to the county, and it works through the county's capital asset budget. So we can surely ask for revisions at that point, or possibly reallocations, but we can surely incorporate in our next submission an increase.
What I think would be helpful to, and I can't speak for Priscilla because she's not here, and certainly I know for Bill on the city side, if there is kind of a justification of what you need, I think that would give us a working formula of what we can request as far as the distribution of SPOS funds. And I don't know whether I don't guess the city does any of their SPOS. I think it's all through the county. Your percentage, I don't think any of that goes to CAT. I think it's just from the county. So I don't know that it would affect you, but it certainly would help me make a case to the county to say, this is what Chatham Area Transit needs going forward, and here's an approximate figure on it, and I'd like to see us meet that figure.
You can certainly do that.
I have a couple of questions, and I will continue to apologize for my lack of background for the next few months while I get up to speed on all this stuff. But two different questions on this. It says here that there was a total of $9 million, and Terry, I think you said we've gotten one of that, approximately one of that now. Are you asking for the $8 million balance at this point?
Actually, no, it's a reimbursable SPOS.
So you're just asking to
So
be
as we
reimbursed on.
spend the money for our capital projects, we submit individual requests to the county.
Well, the point of my question there is that $9 million was based on if the full tax revenues expected were collected.
Right.
We won't know that until the end of the 6 years.
Exactly. So
So-
our staff works with the county staff, with the engineering department, and they let us know how collections are going.
Right, so you don't
And-
get too far out in front of that and then wind
Not
up
at all, no,
overspending.
not at all. Right now, we have a billing for $320,000, which represents 6 months worth of capital. and we'll bill them every month once this intergovernmental agreement is in place.
My second question on a slightly different note, and I realize there's probably not a good answer for this now, but Helen, you're talking about some sort of formula for the next SPLOST, you know, how you ask for it. But if we wind up going ahead next year with a T-SPLOST and a Trans-SPLOST, does that wind up meaning that the county is less likely to provide money
Yes.
for CAT from the
That would
regular SPLOST?
definitely be my
Yeah.
opinion. I mean, if
It would be.
there's
Before
an
we ever get to
earmark.
another SPLOST, we're
Right, if
liable to
there-
be out of it.
Right. If there's an earmarked SPLOST specifically for transit, then I don't think you're gonna get anything
Get it.
from these regular SPLOST from the county. I mean, that would be like the school board,
Sure.
you know, coming to us and saying we need some money, but, oh, by the way, we have e-SPLOST. So I don't think that would happen. I mean, do you, James?
I don't think, but I know it ain't
Make the list before it was voted on.
be too much of a hustle.
So one question to ask then in terms of T-SPLOST and Trans-SPLOST is, you know, which way do you get the most money?
Mm-hmm. True.
Good point.
True. Your T-Splosh will give you more.
Yeah.
Yeah, much more. So if we have to make a swap, it would be the T-Splosh instead of this regular Splosh.
Are you talking as a CAT board member now or as a county commissioner?
You have
I'm
to wear two
speaking,
caps.
we're speaking with both hats on.
I'm looking at what will give us the most money, and that T-Splosh will give us more.
Okay. Okay, any other discussion? Need a motion on the floor for approval.
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Have a motion on the floor and a second for approval. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Last item, bus rehabilitation project contract amendment. Curtis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Staff requests board approval to amend the contract for the bus rehabilitation services with Coach Crafters. County awarded a contract for bus rehab services to Coach Crafters last year. The initial contract is rehab 25 vehicles in a fixed route fleet. The original cost estimates were $116,000 per unit, not to exceed $2.9 million overall. Revised cost estimates project average cost per bus at $170,000 a piece, which is an increase of $52,000 per unit.
I'll make a motion for approval.
Second?
Any other discussion on this motion? Go ahead,
I just
Joe.
have a question. Since you're reducing the number from 25 to 14, what happens with the buses that you're not able to deal with now?
We would deal with, this is a 2-year project, so we would deal with, when we get additional funding over the next 2 years, we would then allocate for more
Are
buses
they
to
still
be rehabbed.
serviceable at this point, though?
Absolutely.
Usable?
The question was a matter of, are we rehabbing a bus, to get it out there so that it can just get by? And that's really not cost effective when the original thing came out, so we wanna make sure that the bus has a reduction in maintenance costs, so we can see it on the other end, and make sure it's not just street worthy, but will last another 6 to 7 years, so.
Any other questions? All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Next is the presentations. Curtis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Beverly? All right, staff would like to introduce Mr. Chuck Clark.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Mr. Clark, could you go ahead and explain a little bit about
Okay.
what we're doing here?
I was just waiting to.
No, I'm sorry,
To
go
get
ahead.
the signal there. I represent a group called Employee Support for the Guard and Reserve. We are volunteers with the Department of Defense. We try to encourage everyone to provide service and support for their Guard and Reserve members. By law, the USERRA Act requires that Guard people be protected in their employment, but sometimes people forget that. And every time you see ships go out of the harbor here, every time you see folks deploying overseas, those deployments can't happen without the medical and the transportation assets and many others that are in our Guard and Reserve. So, in other words, without the Guard and Reserve, we don't get to deploy. We don't get to have successful missions overseas. So we want to make sure that everyone recognizes that. And as part of CAT, you guys are superior organization as far as taking care of Guard and Reserve people. We want to recognize you today for a number of things. First, we have the statement of support, which you have, and did you want to read that?
Chairman, do you want to read this or do you want to read it?
All right, I'll read it. This is a statement of support for the Guard and Reserve. Chatham Area Transit. We recognize the Guard and Reserve are essential to the strength of our nation and well-being of our communities. In the highest American tradition, the patriotic men and women of the Guard and Reserve serve voluntarily in an honorable and vital profession. They train to respond to their community and their country in time of need. They deserve the support of every segment of our society. If these volunteer forces are to continue to serve our nation, increased public understanding is required of the essential role of the Guard and Reserve in preserving our national security. If these volunteer forces are to continue to serve, I'm jumping the gun again. Therefore, we join other employers in pledging that we fully recognize, honor, and comply with the Uniformed Services Employment and Reemployment Right Act, USERRA. We fully recognize and honor and we will provide our managers and supervisors with the tools they need to effectively manage those employees who serve in the Guard and Reserve. We appreciate the values, leadership, and unique skills service members bring to the workforce and will encourage opportunities to employ Guardsmen, reservists, transitioning service members, and veterans. We will continue to recognize and support our country's service members and their families in peace and crisis and war. Signed February the 16th by myself, Paul Mark, National Chair, and Ash Carter, Secretary, who is Secretary of Defense. And I'm familiar with this organization because I've been a member of other governmental entities and organizations also, and they do a great job because with their volunteer service and the things that they have done to help the Guard and Reserve, they've made a big difference because they have brought the message out, and so that those things that could be done and how important it is to support them.
We're blessed in this area to have other exemplary employees like CAT who support our military and our people in uniform. Without that, it's awfully hard to have a family, a daytime job, a weekend job, and get everything done on time. So we really do appreciate that. Part of our volunteer services include going around talking to organizations to make sure they understand what the USERRA Act is. We also go out to the Reserve and the National Guard units, particularly during their Yellow Ribbon programs, and make sure they understand because there are rights and there are obligations. And I'm sure none of you have been down to the courthouse for personal reasons, only professional ones. You see the balancing act there. And we want to make sure that the soldiers, sailors, and airmen are taking their responsibilities seriously as well. We also have an ombudsman service if there's some misunderstanding between the service member and the employer to provide assistance there. And today we have 2 Patriot Awards that we want to present. In this process, we have a nominator over here, which is Lieutenant Postel. He's been with you guys for a number of years, and he wanted to recognize 2 employers of his. One is Wendy Allen, Transportation Manager, and also Mr. Curtis Kobler, who is the Interim Manager. So if you want to actually do the presentation there. You gonna say something nice
Hello,
about
everyone.
it too?
Lieutenant Postel. I'm a transportation supervisor here with CAT. I just would like to present these awards to Mr. Kobler and Mr. Arden. Whenever I need time off work, it's never a problem with them. It's a huge weight off my shoulders whenever I need to go to my unit for duty. And I really thank you guys for supporting me in that. Mr. Kobler? Yes, sir. Thank you.
And we expect to be back in the future because we have awards that are both serial and sequential and move up in ranking. And at the rate we're going now, I'm sure there's going to be further recognition down the road. So thank you so much, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. If you ever have any questions about Garden Reserve and how we might be able to help you out, I think everybody's got my cell number, and it's with me 24/7. So I guess that makes me like some other professionals, call anytime.
Thank you very much for your participation and the organization making a big difference. I know that. And giving up your time as a volunteer to help do this and make it successful.
Just following in the footsteps of my mentor and boss back here, Colonel Ed Wexler. I know everybody knows him. He's Mr. Veteran as far as organizations go around years and years.
Well, I was curious this morning when I came up and I saw a new face controlling the traffic out there. Now I know why he was there with the bus.
Well, everybody told us where to go, but we were just trying to figure out, just where over here to this one park.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just make one
Sure.
comment here. Thank you very much for employing men and women of the Guard and Reserve. Please continue to do so at every opportunity. We think they make the best employees you can find. They understand not just leadership, but followership. They're drug-free. They know what it means to be on time every time. And because they deploy around the world, they have a larger scope of what goes on in a community than people who never leave the community. So thank you very much for that.
And Colonel Wexler, I'm familiar, and many other people are too, because you've done a really good job in the positions that you have been in the past, and of course you're volunteer and all. So thank you again for yours.
Appreciate the comments. Thank you very much.
So if you need somebody to manage assets, to manage people, to move products around, and certainly CAT fits into those categories, you can't go wrong with hiring a vet. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, next on the agenda is the Executive Director's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our farebox recovery is 17.89 for January, which brings our yearly average to 17.99, which is above budget of 17.7. Our complaints are down and are down over the year. Preventable accidents, we did 2 compared to last year, which was also 2, but our yearly average is trending lower. And our passengers per hour for productivity continues to remain steady, as last year a little bit higher. Paratransit complaints are down, not only for January but also for the year. And I want to point out that our work-related injuries were up this past January. However, we're trending down compared to the year. Second page, you see that our KPI summary reports, we're trending higher than our goal of 18 for productivity. Our gross cost per revenue mile is under $6.85. Our preventable accidents per 100,000 revenue miles is still under the 2.0 mark, and our complaints are under 10 per 100,000 passengers. Our mean distance between vehicle failures is greater than the 12,000, not much, but it is above. And I want to point out that our on-time performance for our yearly average is 83%. Our mark is at 90. I want to point out that January drove that number even higher with an 85% just for the month of January. So we continually to trend up over the last few months for our on-time performance.
Any questions on this? Any board member? Anything else, Curtis?
Just to point out that Mr. Vactor's report is attached, if you guys had a chance to read that. I know it's somewhat lengthy, describing what's going on with MARTA and the trans-plus and stuff in Atlanta. And there was another update given out, but this is the last week coming up now with the legislative session in Atlanta, so a lot of things are probably happening this week. So we'll look for him to give you guys another update at our committee meetings.
Okay. Is that it from the report?
That's it.
Okay. And next, item 6, unit dates, and this is for information only. This was in your manual that you received and had all of that information in there. For example, service delivery update. Curtis, any?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to point out our ridership was down 3%. We had one less weekday in January as we did last year, and as you know, we carry about 14,000 to 15,000 people weekdays, so that hurt us having one less weekday. Conversely, Sunday we had an extra Sunday, which is anywhere from 4,000 to 5,000. So that's why it's 25% up on Sunday. To bring in perspective, in February our ridership is relatively flat, because of vice versa when you flip weekdays on different months. On page 7, I wanted to point out that our wheelchairs, the amount of wheelchairs we carry on our fixed route service continues to increase 25%. And on page 8, our trip cancellations and no-shows for paratransit is still trending down, minus 43% from last year, which is a good sign that we keep going down every month. And, any questions?
What do you attribute that to? Maybe y'all just getting the word out how important it is, or?
Which
In terms of the same day cancellation?
Yeah, it's making sure that with the trip that they want, when we book it, we get all the information, making sure this is confirming with them as well. We also have the notification process, automatic notification that goes out, so they'll get a call at night before their trip, and they can confirm on the telephone. So a lot of that helps.
They get a call or a text or?
A call.
Okay.
Helen?
Are we still trying to track the Abercorn Express, because the numbers still aren't looking any better?
Yes, ma'am, we are tracking that, and we'll have our next service change coming up in October, November-ish time, and so we hope to make a decision as to how we're going to do with that route by then.
I mean, I'm glad the Airport Express is looking a little better.
It is looking better.
But that Abercorn Express is troubling.
Yes, we switched it a couple of times, so.
We're drifting down to 1 passenger an hour, and it's getting really,
yes, sir.
really low.
That's my concern. And, again, perception, when people see one person on a bus, it doesn't do anything for our image. It just makes people question the expense of running these buses.
Yes, ma'am.
And do you have any thoughts on that, Kurt? If you don't mind. Do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, we've tried this Express over and over again. It sounds like a great idea, but it just doesn't seem to catch fire.
Yeah, before I got here, the Express was running a different route. It was kind of mirroring a little bit of the 14 Abercorn, and it was changed to do just a few stops, and I know we've changed it a few times. It's surprising to me that more people don't want to ride it from down in the area, but I'm not really sure why the ridership's not up higher. We've tried different routing, different placements. I mean, obviously we don't have a true park and ride, so it's kind of difficult to compare it to a park and ride scenario with a real express service. But we'll continue to look at it and come up with ideas to try to salvage it, but at some point we have to cut the cord.
Realistic.
Okay, any other
Would
questions?
it just be a suggestion to number 14 Abercorn to have a little sign saying, we now have an express bus. If you're not looking to make frequent, this might be a quicker route for you. It's just a thought. I
Yeah.
mean, because my fear is a lot of people do not know that it exists. And if you have someone that is taking that route and taking the number 14, just because they don't know this exists, maybe that's a little sign could go up on the inside of the bus saying we have an express route for Abercorn.
Sure. Yeah, we can certainly look at doing a marketing push before we decide to cancel
Scrap
this.
it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And now the financial update, Terry. Oh, excuse me, system development update, Nick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In terms of the system development update page in your packet, you'll see some highlights of what we've been working on for the last month. Under marketing communications, you'll see a bit of information about the St. Patrick's Day shuttles and the advertising around those. In addition, coordination has been ongoing with Visit Savannah, and you'll see in our lobby we have a brochure rack from them, as we are sort of a de facto tourist center of where people arrive in town. Staff attended the American Public Transit Association Marketing Communication Workshop in Phoenix earlier this month, and received a variety of information and attended workshops there. In addition, CAT will sponsor the Paint the Town Maroon rally on April 8th in Johnson Square in support of Armstrong Atlantic Scholarship. On the following page, you'll see some highlights of the outreach department, and you'll see some updates about the public meetings and involvement with Chatham Beautiful and the Fair Housing Council. And then further below that, you'll see some highlights from the planning department. We were successful in including our TIP amendments in the most recent core MPO board meeting, which happened on March 9th, and will allow us to secure federal funding. In addition, we've been in discussions with the city manager regarding streetcar development, and discussions with the Metropolitan Planning Commission regarding the Chatham County blueprint. You'll see some other projects listed below, as well, including an event that staff attended called the Dollars and Cents of Urbanism, which was hosted by the Savannah Downtown Redevelopment Authority, and some work that's being proposed by Georgia Tech students working in civil and environmental engineering. So, with that, thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm just very grateful that you all are participating in the blueprint. I think that that's going to be tremendous as far as giving us an overall idea of the needs and the assessment of our community. So that's wonderful.
Thank you. I think we have a meeting scheduled, I believe, later this week or early next week. So.
Wonderful.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
And, when you meet with the city manager and talk about streetcar development, but what do those discussions look like? Like, how preliminary are we? And I know we're looking at grants and all that sort of thing.
I would say very preliminary.
Okay.
We are looking at, the type of grant that we're looking at is called Small Starts, Section 5309, and looking at ways that we can develop an application for that. Okay. No agreement's been reached.
Okay. I'm glad you're pursuing that.
All right, Terry, the financial update.
Yes, sir, thank you. Financial updates in your package. Nick mentioned that we have incorporated the FTA funding into the TIP, which also means that they have given us our funding notice. So we have our known amount for 5307, which has allowed me to make an accrual in January. You can see the difference in our PM revenue line. It's up a little. It's not at budget, but it's probably doubled over the December level. And that's driving our positive month-to-date budget variance. We are over in revenues to expenditures by 71,000, and that is 120,000 better than budget. And it's a direct result of the availability of that number and us being able to accrue that revenue in January. You can also see that it's closed the negative variance year to date, and it will continue to do that each coming month. And so by the end of the year, the projection is that we should be about 300,000 better than budget. and I'll take any questions.
Very good.
And was the federal money, I mean, so it was more than we anticipated, is that?
It was kind of right at what we anticipated,
Uh-huh.
but until we knew the number and January got here, we couldn't book the accrual.
Right.
We apply for the grant and it's a 12-month period. The previous year's funding ran out in December, so we needed the number to accrue for January, and now we'll be able to do that each month through June.
Any other
And we
questions?
actually expect the grant to be awarded 3 or 4 months earlier this year, which will definitely help us with our cash flow.
Yes. And if you look at that, they've got a good breakdown that's been put in there for all of the different areas in there. It's 15, and you can look up and down and see all of that, so it covers it pretty well from the operating fund and so forth. Okay, that's all you have, Terry?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Old business, any old business? New business, any new business? Anybody
I'd like
have
to
any new
talk about
business?
business.
Howard?
Could be new business, could be old business, but on the subject of Charles Sisk, I think as most people probably know by now, he has committed himself to come the week of May 23rd. And I want to make sure that we make this a really big event and invite all the right people that are important so we can get a real regional feel. And I'm worried that nobody is really taking charge of the invitation list. So I would like to propose that somebody take charge of who to invite, take charge of sending out invitations, and take charge of getting follow-up phone calls to all these individuals to make sure we get people from around the region.
Okay, I've got a list I have put together so that you'll know how it, elected officials, especially every elected official in all of the 7 cities, because it's really important. Because once they see Sisk as he goes into it, that's going to be advantageous for their individual cities. So I think they will have a different outlook and see that the possibilities for them, that it's not going to cost them a lot of money by going from the information that you and Helen brought to us and all, and how that development can grow, and getting as much information as we can from Sisk, that will be really, really good. So since I've got that and some other lists and all, so that we have key people in the community like the heads of the Chamber of Commerce and others, on board, and many of the large businesses in the community that could participate in it and all. So I've already made up quite a number of invites on that, and I'd see if anybody else might wanna. Would you like to be on that?
I think I'm probably not the best person to be on that because I don't have the political connections and know the people.
Okay.
I'm happy to work with Charles on the presentation to gear it to what we want, but I think it'd be better for others.
Yeah,
in this
okay.
room.
Helen?
Pete, I just want to suggest that if we're looking at the future of CAT being regional, that we don't just limit to the municipalities here. We need to reach out into the surrounding counties and make sure that those elected officials are included.
I've got Effingham County and Bryan County also on that list. James?
If you're through with that,
Yes.
French, you through with that one? Okay. I want us to begin looking, I know we're trying to do everything to promote CAT on the outside. I want us to begin looking on the inside of CAT. And let's see if we can build a stronger CAT, beginning with our employees. Curtis, I think I mentioned to you before about a salary study. I want to follow back up on that, where we at with it. I know we have had some turnovers in staff members. Have we replaced those employees that we lost. I think anytime you lose somewhat off a team, the team should get weaker, or you put more responsibility on the remaining staff. Now, I remember hearing this some time ago about wearing 2 and 3 different caps and hats. If we grow, that means responsibility will have to grow with us. So let us look at how, if I ask you right now, the morale of the employees, how would you summarize it? Would it be on a scale of 0 to 10? Where would it be at?
Considering what happened over the last few months, I would say right now it's at about a 6 or 7.
6 or 7. So that means we got room for improvement.
Yes, we do.
Okay, so this, ladies and gentlemen, this is what let's build inside and make it strong. And I think that strength of our employees will help us get out there what we discussed today. And employees is really what makes a company. We the figurehead. We sit here and we talk about everything. But if you got disgruntled employees, for some reason, what all we do here, it floats out in the public. And how the public see us is the strength of this organization. And right now, I'm not pleased with what I hear. I don't hear what I want to hear. But I know we're doing a good job. Trust me, we're doing an excellent job, and we can't please everybody. But I think it starts and begins with our employees. We want to make our employees happy. We don't want them to have complaints after complaints. We don't want them to wake up in the morning and don't want to come to work. That may come for some reason, but we don't know that until we find out. I think when we first had a flip over and you become interim, that meeting that you and I had along with Helen, very, very good meeting. And we were all on a good start, but I don't want us to stop there.
No, sir. We had a series of meetings after the events that happened in December. We're going to have another series of meetings with the employees. We're also filling positions, with vacancies, not only vacancies that occurred recently, but vacancies that were never filled under the previous director. We've been doing interviews, and we've filled a couple of those positions, and we're going to continue pushing forward and filling positions, as well as continuing to meet with employees and make sure the support mechanism is there and that they know we have an open door policy.
Okay. Thanks.
And we've had that, as we all know, we had that unfortunate situation with our former director and all. But what this board has done, put together things and the directions and a lot of things that Curtis has done, it's helped make a big difference in the community. I go to lots of organizations and happen to, some of them ask me to come out and speak, and I talk about, that the things that have been put in together, about our finances and other things and all, and it's making a difference that in not too distant future, we'll have not only one of the best transportation systems and all in our area in the state, but a larger area, like around the country, because we have a good image with a number of people, the American Transportation Association and other places. And of course, Curtis has been to 2 meetings that he had. Just name the 2 organization meetings and the time element that you spent with them just recently.
With the FTA and with the legislators, you know?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. In February and March.
Yeah, February and March over there, and that was really good for the information that he has received. And I know that the American Transportation Association has a really good, feel about our Chatham Area Transit Authority.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I was with APTA this past weekend. They're full support of us, and any help we need, they're willing to support us. So.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions?
Oh, just one
Bill?
comment, going back to the list for the CIS thing, it's probably a substantial overlap, or maybe a complete overlap, but you might touch base in preparing the list with Kevin Klinkenberg and Dickie Mopper with SDRA, because they've started that new urbanism series now, and they probably have a mailing list based on the first presentation they did. This would probably tie in nicely with.
Yeah, I'm on the advisory committee for CEDRA, Savannah Economic Development Authority, and I'll bring that up to Trip.
CETA would be good, but I think also the SDRA,
Yeah, he's
just
talking about
because they are
something
working on that.
Yeah, for the downtown and all. Right.
To come back to that subject, have we found the location for this meeting yet? Or who? This is gonna come at us fast. We have to get something booked and.
Well,
there's a lot of mechanics to go through.
Yeah, and it has to be, hopefully, that we're gonna have a very large attendance on that. One of the comments that was brought to me, the Coastal Center, the Georgia Coastal Center, because the way that it is set up, like a theater and all of that, and they have had a number of meetings, but if it gets to a point that there'd be more than those, then what it handles, I think is somewhere between 400 and 500, something like that, that was mentioned, that we can see about one of the colleges, the Armstrong or Savannah State University, that has very large areas that they, I'm sure, would make available to us for something as important as this, Howard.
So is there a point person on staff that's overseeing, kind of setting this up, or?
Well, we've got the hotel,
Uh-huh.
and if we have a number, we can pursue a
Okay.
location.
Sure.
I think what I'm really worried about is that we get this date and this invitation out to people like the mayor and the city managers and the county managers, so that we have good coverage with this. Because their calendar is gonna book up also, and if we
Yeah.
wait too long, I just don't wanna miss a lot of key people for this.
May I make a suggestion too? I know that I'm working on a mental health symposium for the county that's gonna be tomorrow, and we held a press conference announcing that it was coming up, and maybe that's something you might wanna consider doing, that this gentleman is coming, and, a contact and what have you, for people that might be interested.
Who's the point person from our staff that's overseeing this?
I mean, I have been the point person to get them here.
Okay.
And work with them in the presentation. That's my point, is we need some point person on the staff that's going to do this. I'm afraid that it's just gonna,
I agree.
you've got the list, but somebody's gonna have to do the mailing for that list for you. And somebody's going to have to do all the
And we
arrangements
haven't
for you
even set
and
up
accept
a
reservations
location.
and.
We haven't set up locations for the meetings. I mean, y'all, we're 2 months out.
Yeah, and I'm sure it'll be more than just a meeting, I mean, obviously we want.
But I'm saying
Yeah.
for when he's gonna make his presentation, we haven't even secured a venue.
So we need a save the date invitation and then a follow-up, formal invitation. So
Right, but we need.
if staff could get the list, we could.
Well, I'll get with Curtis on this and take
But we also need to secure a
any
location.
suggestions that any
Once we
board
see
member
the
wants to
list.
make and all. Cause I've been, I know how important it is since Howard and Helen brought that information to us, and I've been thinking a lot of things and making a lot of notes and all of that, because we want those people that are gonna come in, that we take care of them, because maybe there's a possibility of a time element that we gotta look about having some food even, served and all of that. So going beyond just having them come in their meeting for whatever time, because we'll get, I'm sure there's gonna be a press, question and answer thing right there, and how long is that going to take, and, with all these important people that are coming to this, that, situation, we might have to take a break, and end that. But of course, Howard, doing the thing with Mr. Sisk and all, and he'll have, information for us. And so that we make sure that we handle this particular, event, because it's gonna be one of the most important ones that we have. And like I said, I think those cities that, that opted out, once they hear all of this and the success with 33 other cities joining with Denver, Colorado, and how they have gone beyond transportation and even economic development and all of that, boy, that's gonna be something that's never been done in our community before. And we can all this board can be really proud of that we are putting something together like that, hopefully that we'll be blessed with the success of it.
Are you planning on any private meetings with him and any local people, aside from the formal presentation?
Yeah, we have them for 3 days, so we have time to do that.
Well, and the reason I ask is one of the things that we're starting to work on with council right now, and the mayor in particular is driving this, is the idea of long-term planning and, the recreating or revitalizing and updating the downtown master plan. And it might be a good thing for if he could have maybe a private meeting, something with the mayor, maybe a couple of other council members, but in particular the mayor, I think, and Al Scott would probably be a good thing too. Whether at the same time or separately.
I think we should make time for that.
But again, that's gonna mean getting the date out now to get on the calendar.
Yeah. Because we gotta pick out the day that we're gonna actually have that, because having those 3 days, we gotta make everything as positive and as good as possible.
Curtis, who on CAT board now does that from the inside? This planning that we're talking about now. Who's the employee that does that?
We can certainly, myself and Beverly can look at booking a place, and we can put the invitations out. We would just need a contact list, and then I'm assuming that, Mr. Chairman, you and Ms. Stoner and some others would follow up with those people, besides them receiving a hard invitation, but receiving a phone call saying, can you come? But the other logistics we can take care of.
We need
to get on it.
Get a list of timeline action that, when you do your press conference, because of what I'm hearing, we don't even must have a site already. And I think that's the first thing you need to do. So when you're doing your invitation, you have all that information in place.
All that's gonna be taken care of.
Yes, we saying it, but.
No, listen to me. If you look at all those lists that I've got and some contacts and all of that, you'll see what, and you've got good suggestions and all, but what I'm gonna do is get with Curtis, and there'll be people on the staff along with Curtis that's gonna be involved in this.
This is the point that I'm making.
We'll get a place to.
That's all I'm talking about.
We'll get a place to go this week.
So I stop talking and talking.
Thank you. If I can circle back to the place.
Yeah.
If he travels on a Monday, obviously we have him all day on Tuesday to visit with Cat and to get the lay of the land and acclimated to make sure we're comfortable with what he's gonna say. And then the question coming back to your comment is he can either give this on the next day and be available the day after for private meetings, or we can do private meetings first. But we're gonna have to pick the days at the second or third day to secure the site.
How long is the presentation? Are you looking at a day-long thing or a few hours or?
A few hours.
Because, so then some of those meetings could happen the same day as the
Same day.
presentation. So I think the first thing is that you may need to keep those 2 dates available just based on the venue, when the venue's available.
Yeah.
That's the first thing to lock
Good
down.
point. Whichever day is available, if one's not, then we'll take the other one, and then we'll let you know.
That's good.
And then if you're planning it as a morning presentation, then you'd have afternoons for meetings as well as the next day. Or the day before.
Okay. All right, and lunch is served.
Do we have any?
Thank you.
That's another way of saying meeting's adjourned.
That's the new way.
This cat speak.
Yeah.
Pete speak.
PowerPoint? As soon as she has something to do with the